Tomorrow you're going to call me and say, Roman, send me the $1 million watch. I want to show it to a client. Are you going to sign a piece of paper? No, I'm going to put it in the mail. I'm going to send it to you. That's our business.
And then he went away with it.
The thing is that if you're a good enough businessman, if you're a smart enough businessman, you will know how to do business and be successful in any market. But mind you, he didn't have a lot of success with his own company. It's usually the case. Just genius watchmakers are not businessmen.
We are still in New York, and right now we are driving to Philadelphia to Luxury Bazaar to meet up with Roman. We have prepared some nice questions just to ask him and see how he is running his business. Very interesting for me to see as well how it's structured with him. He's one of the biggest dealers, and I'm really looking forward. I mean, I know him since so many years, and now finally I'm going to see his office.
I had my zombie killer.
This is the first time you appear now on the channel. Maybe this is a little tough intro, right?
This is a good intro, yeah? Yeah, so my safe is usually filled with guns. There are some watches that I may be currently working on. You should be familiar with the Cobras.
Oui.
So I was doing a piece of content on them, so I left them in my safe, but most of the stuff is in downstairs, and I'll show you. And I'm also, as you noticed by the Formula One car, a big Formula One fanatic.
What is going on with the Formula One? Why are you so into it?
I love the sport. So for me, it was always, there's no other sport. If you look at, for example, Europe, soccer is arguably, not arguably, it is the #1 sport, right? Mm-hmm. But you have, if you look at soccer overall, or you guys call it football, there's thousands of professionals. Formula One, there's only 20. That's it. 20 of the best in the world. And it's a sport where you have teams, where the competition is between 10 teams, but there's also competition within the team. There's no other sport in the world like that. And for me, it combines obviously the human factor, the guys themselves, but there's also the best auto engineering in the world. This is the top level. It's like NASA for aviation. Yeah. Formula One is for cars. You look at Mercedes-Benz, the EQ boost, some of the technology that's in there now. I'm a big Mercedes fan. I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan, a Mercedes fan. So I drive a Mercedes, and I see the technology that's passed down from Formula One down to your own car. Yeah. So to me, it's technology, it's the people. Also, a lot of cool politics.
So we are going to see you then in Vegas.
I'm trying to figure out a way. So we have a suite in Miami that we go every year. Since Miami opened up 3 years ago, we bought a suite for 5 years. So there I'm gonna go. I'm gonna try to go to Vegas.
If you come, because I know someone who is also very involved in Formula One, then let me know. Then we can go there.
Absolutely, it'll be a good time. I will. I'm trying to move some things around in order to be able to make it, but I also married with 3 kids, so it's difficult.
So you are here in this place actually for quite some time, right?
We bought this building, I'm gonna say 12 years ago. Yeah, so we bought it 12 years ago. We grew out of our old office. It was too small for us, so we needed something bigger. So we decided to buy something that will give us room to grow. Come on, I'll show you the rest.
Yeah.
How are you, Marc?
Good, and you? We need to look for some jewelry for my wife. Maybe I can find something.
There's
Tell me what you want.
Plenty of stuff.
Yeah?
Let me show you around.
Okay.
So,
huge area here, wow.
So the Formula One car, obviously. Yeah. Oddly enough, it combines 2 of my favorite things, which is Formula One and also I like pop art. So the artist Gebauer that drew this, he made this as a tribute to Ericsson Senna, one of the greatest that ever done.
And the magician.
Yeah, what's happening, man? How you doing? Good to see you. How's it going, man? How are you?
So the guy unfortunately died in the crash, as you know, but he did it. And oddly enough, I buy the car in auction, I get it delivered, I put it on video, and I get a DM from the artist. He goes, Roman, I've been watching your watch videos for the last 2 years. I can't believe you bought my car. I'm like, yeah. So since we become very good friends, I went to visit him. So what we do here is we have the sales in one spot, and then we have marketing across the other, because somebody's got to pick up a camera, somebody's got to do something. So what we're able to do is we have video, social media, graphic design here, and all the sales people are here. And then the supporting staff, as I like to call it, is along the sides. It's Adrian's office. And again, he sits, because he runs the sales department, he sits right here because they run in and out of his office every day. He actually said he'll be back in an hour because his baby was born. They're doing family photos.
Okay. With Adrian, it's like this. Normally, in the videos, he always seems to be a little bit tough. But
Kevin, how tough is Adrian?
He's tough for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
But I think, there were some things.
He's a sweetheart.
Yeah, if you crack him up, then he's nice.
He's fake tough.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that.
I don't know if he's fake tough.
He's got a big heart. There you go. He's tough, but he cares.
No, what are we thinking? Adrian.
Adrian's real.
Yeah.
If he's mean, he means it. but when he's nice, he means it too. Adrian stands on business.
You know, I offered him some watches. If price is right, he says, okay, accept. No, you know, the dealers who always negotiate, even $100 they want less. This is not the case with him. If price is right, it's okay.
If the price works, he'll always say yes. If the price doesn't work, he will not even, unless he feels that he's close, he won't even offer. Like he'll just say, you know what, this isn't going to work for me. If the price is right, why bargain?
Yeah.
You got to let others eat. That's always been my motto. And Adrian's been with me since he was 17 years old, so he goes by the same motto. You know, you have to be conscious of the fact that you're not the only one in the business. You can't make all the money. You got to let people eat, and when you do that, they come back to you.
But I have to say, you buy more the kind of
The crazy shit.
You don't buy.
Yeah, I like stuff like this. Yeah, this is what I like.
Ay, olha da.
Yeah.
Nice piece.
I'm gonna show you some crazy things, but
Let's go. Yeah.
Avi here, is he going already? Avi sits here because he sits between marketing and also product photography, which is back here. This is, hi Sarah. This is strictly for product photography. So they have all the
You do some amazing pictures. The light on it's so clear. It's really it's looking just very attractive on the picture.
And you know what we do? They collect a bunch of random stuff everywhere, and like all the stuff can be a prop in a matter of seconds, and then that's how you're able to create this, like a simple Zippo lighter, or even they stole my Patek. This is where they went. My Patek medals. I was looking for these, Sarah. They go into my office and they grab a bunch of. See, this is from my This is also from my office. The Tech Quarter. They just. What are these? What are these coins? I don't even know what this is. Oh, Bitcoins. So they usually go in my office and they'll grab a bunch of random stuff, but it gives us the ability to where pictures stay different and we change them up all the time.
But after all this time, I mean, when did you sold your first watch? Since when are you in the business?
I sold my first watch in 2001. It was a 2002. I'm sorry, 2002. It was sold on eBay. It was an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak City of Sales in stainless steel. I sold it to a gentleman in Germany actually for $9,650. That was the very first watch I sold on eBay. Where at the time I didn't really believe that this could work until it worked.
But after all this time, you are still in love with watches, or something changed?
The thing with watches, what happens is that my love for watches doesn't change. What changes is certain intricacies or certain directions that I will take myself or my interest, because as much as I know about watches, there's always something new to learn. There's always something new that comes out. So, which is why, I'm always very interested in independent watchmaking, because they're the ones that are bringing something new to the forefront. Breguet has been doing the same thing over and over. So has Blancpain. Anybody that's under the big groups, Richemont or Swatch Group, you tend to see more of the same. Yes, once in a blue moon, like Show Party came out with the Crystal Striking Time, or Minute Repeater, which is an amazing watch. But you go to the independents and you see what they do, and you see what they try to recreate, because in watches, it's been there, done that, right? A perpetual calendar is a perpetual calendar. A tourbillon is a tourbillon. Now they have a double tourbillon, triple tourbillon, but it's still a tourbillon that Breguet made not so long ago, right? So it's like, where do you find excitement? You find excitement.
This is my question. For example, if a client now wants to buy a watch, you sit with him and he said, I really want a Daytona. You feel something when you touch a Daytona?
It's very difficult to feel something when you touch a Daytona, because it's an item that's probably I've sold thousands of Daytonas in my lifetime. But when I sit with a client, my first job is to get what he wants, right? It doesn't matter what I think. If I'm asked for my opinion, I'll give it. But what I usually do with clients that are on the fence and they don't know, I ask them, I say, well, why do you want the Daytona? Is it because it's the most popular watch in the world? Is it because a Rolex is a flex and everybody knows you have a Rolex? And I tell them there's nothing wrong with that. Is there anything wrong with flex? No, that's the world we live in. The internet, we are responsible for that. We brought that to the light. We took the watch business out of a stuffy boutique with white gloves to the internet, to guys that are wearing sweatsuits. So I tell them, if flex is your number one priority, then yes, that is the watch for you. If you want something interesting, if you want something where you can tell a story, there's only so much you can tell a story about a Daytona. It's been said 1,000 times. There's a lot of new stuff. I'll show you. Come on. There's a lot of new stuff out there.
But there's one question I want to ask you. In our German company, let's say the price for most sold watch is Omega reduced. We sell hundreds, okay? Here in the US, I don't feel that the people like Omega.
Because United States of America is very, very much keen on flex, right? Flex tends to be 7 out of 10 purchases. And what happens is, like, people tell me, let's look at Mercedes and Audi. Most will argue that Audi is made better in terms of engine, in terms of how it drives performance. For example, you have the Mercedes S-Class and you have the Audi A8. Now, by the book, if you look at Audi A8 and see how it drives, a buddy of mine bought one. He goes, well, it has this engine, and it has performance this, and it's got less maintenance, and it gives me all these factors that supposedly makes the Mercedes lesser of a car than the Audi, and they're about the same price. So I said, you're right, Audi may be better, but it's only better until a Mercedes pulls up next to it at a light, and that's Rolex and Omega. And Omega is a great watch, lots of history. They're made very, very well. There's nothing bad I can say about Omega, but an Omega is only as good until somebody comes in wearing a Rolex, and that's the difference, right? And it's the best analogy I can make, because, and if, tomorrow Omega becomes more popular than Rolex, then the roles will flip-flop, but nobody's touching Rolex.
Okay, then question. Someone wants to purchase a watch under 5,000. What would you recommend?
Tudor, Omega. I would also recommend maybe a 4-digit Rolex, right? Or some old 5-digit Datejust that you can buy under $5,000. But I don't recommend brands. What I do is I ask questions, right? And this is what I teach my sales staff. I tell them, hey, you need to figure out what the client wants without trying to bias him. Because when people ask me, Roman, what's the best watch under $5,000? And I tell them, oh, buy the Tudor Black Bay. They will immediately be biased because I told them to do so.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm also biased. I hold a certain stock, right? So let's say I have 50 watches under $5,000. I want to sell one that I have in stock versus one that maybe somebody dreams up of. But the job is to facilitate a sale. And by facilitating a sale, you ask what the client wants. So ultimately, he comes to a decision with your help, without you trying to bias him. It's very difficult to do, because most of the time you will bias people.
Now let's check out some watches. We are here because I know that you have...
Alex, you want to help me out? Bring up some bangers? Bring up something that Marc hasn't seen before.
I want to see the Girard Perregaux with the history.
The historical Anthony watch, yes. Hot take for all you German out there. I believe that Langenzuna's watchmaking is superior to that of Patek Philippe.
Yeah, the movement, if you take a look at it, it looks like city.
I think it's better.
Yeah.
What do we have here for, this is definitely a Roman buy.
So this is, I would say, it's a little bit difficult to sell, maybe.
Yeah, because of the size and because it's round. Everybody wants this Richard Mille versus that. But if you break down, and everybody that likes, people like to talk shit about Richard Mille, saying, oh, they're toys and plastic watches. But if you take the technology and break it down, this is based on the B06 computer they used to use in flight back in the day before they have digital equipment. And this watch will literally do exactly what that does. So if you're in the plane and all your gadgets turn off, you can actually use this watch to be able to navigate and to be able to look at altitude and all those other things, which is an amazing thing from a mechanical perspective. Is it necessary? No. You have iPhones, you have electronics today, but the fact that they're able to over and over achieve certain things mechanically, like the G sensor, for example, right? They did it in 2 tourbillons, and it actually works. Like if you're driving a car and you turn really, really fast, that G sensor will actually show you the G forces as you're driving. Again, is it necessary? No. Is it I call it a horological flex. This is what I love. So let's keep on.
But in terms of, let's say, I think in your company there are 2 hearts. If we would go by Adrian, he would more focus on, let's say, moving pieces, like what everyone would buy. Am I correct?
Yeah, correct.
And you are more on the side of watches which are more niche, and they probably will stay with you a little bit longer. Either you sell them directly or they will stay longer.
So let's not kid ourselves. At the end of the day, this is still a business. Yes, you can be passionate about stuff, and I'm super passionate about what I do. But if you're looking at things from a business perspective, and you have to, because I have 30 people here, we pay them their salaries, their livelihood depends on mine and me running the business properly. So when you look at a company and you see that, and I'm sure with you it's the same, close to 30%, a little more of your business is going to be Rolex, regardless of what you do, you have to pay attention to that. But when you're buying, quote unquote, the Roman buys, it's not like I buy them because, oh, I'm so passionate. I am. But I also look at it from a business sense, and the business sense tells me that, hey, if I'm going to purchase a piece such as this, it better carry an abnormal margin because it's going to take me longer to sell it. Yeah. So it's really return on investment over time. So there is rhyme and reason as to how we buy these things. And I also look at not just your entire stock, you also look at things like, well, where's the market today? Where do I park my money today? Today, I'm not as willing to park as much money into Roman buys because today the market is tougher, so the cash has to turn faster. So yes, obviously, I'm going to be keen on going with seemingly what Adrian likes to buy. But trust me, Adrian buys plenty of Roman buys. It's just you buy them right. If it's going to take me 6 months to sell something, I can't work on the same 10% margin as I do with Rolex. It has to be a larger margin. At the end of the year, it's going to even out anyway over time. But So there is the passion, but you have to be conscious of the fact that you have to be able to separate passion from business, because again, this isn't a hobby. This is a big business that feeds a lot of families at this point.
And my feeling is that the US market is a little bit more closed, I would say. The dealers, they kind of more deal within the US and not so much from the outside. Am I right? Or?
So no, some do, some don't. So obviously there was a lot of dealings with Asia, which is why I have an office in Hong Kong for obvious reasons. Now that the Asian market has gone down tremendously, you know, in the very beginning of my career, I was doing a ton of business with Europe. But again,
now you.
But it's only one way.
Yeah.
Because you guys have the pesky VAT. If I send you something, you're screwed. You send me something, I pay a little bit of duties, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, it's.
No, but if you go on 47th Street and you know all the people from.
If you go on 47th Street, you need to put on bulletproof underwear, first of all. Second of all, there's plenty of guys on 47th Street that I know work with European dealers for the last 20 years. You just don't know about it.
Okay.
They do on a regular basis, because again, importing stuff into the United States is not the same as export. I've worked with plenty of dealers in Europe, some of them you know, where I'm able to export stuff to them, but these are usually those Roman buy pieces where they carry enough margin where you can cover the VAT. If I start selling you Rolexes, you're going to be in the minus.
100%.
You know what I mean? So it's situational, plus it's also very currency dependent. When the euro was, I remember the good old times, the euro was 160, 165. You know how much stuff I sold to VAT, no VAT, it didn't matter, you know, because the euro was so high against the dollar. Now it's the other way around. So now it always went back and forth. Depending on the currencies, you buy or you sell. But the euro has to be extremely high. The perfect spot for euros for us to sell to you guys when it was hovering around 137, 140, right? I mean, it got up to more, but the perfect where the other way around right now is about there, like 110. 105 is usually better.
Yeah. What brand would you say makes right now the most mistakes? What would you, if you can speak to, let's say, one brand owner, what would you say is wasted potential?
There's quite a few independents that come to mind, and I don't really want to name their names simply because I like them, right? But it's a general rule, especially some of the newer independents, when they come out of the gate, they come out and the prices are hit really high on the retail. MSRP is really high. Why is it really high? Because they are artists in their own right. They have a vision, they're super passionate, and this is what we talked about earlier. They don't know how to combine passion and business sense. So what happens is their cost of production becomes so high to a point where they have no choice but to set MSRP at $500,000, $400,000 right out of the gate. Well, at that price point, the only room you have to go is down, not up. That's number one. And the second thing that happens is that they're still on a mindset of, you have an independent watchmaker sitting in the valley somewhere where his great-grandfather used to make pocket watches, and his mind is set to, okay, I'm going to make 50 watches and I want to put them in all the big authorized dealer stores. Well, when they're giving it to these authorized dealers in the likes of, like, let's talk big chains, Turnell. Well, Turnell's not around anymore. Let's say Turnell, Wimpy, who else? Cellini, right? Oh, I got my watch into Cellini. What they don't realize is that they can take that same watch, put it on mine and your wrist, and we don't work on 50% margins, and that watch will get 1,000,000 times more exposure than the 20 people that walk into that store every day. Yeah. Because what happens is those big chain stores, what are they? They're discounting anyway. So that's one thing. My heart bleeds still for Breguet.
Is a brand approaching you that you maybe get it as official dealer?
So I work with many brands, I don't mention any names, and I never strive to be an official dealer. I'm a very much handshake guy, right? So I've had brands approach me plenty of times saying, well, Roman, you have the exposure and this, that, and the other, maybe we can do some kind of a marketing deal. Tell them, sorry, I'm a watch dealer, I'm not an influencer. I'll leave that to my friend Nico, right? Which he's really, really good at, but that's not what I do. What I do is I sell watches. So if a brand ever approaches me, I said, if you give me the goods, whatever it is that I do on the marketing end, you'll get automatically. Yeah. Because I always talk about the watches, I always show the watches, I always promote them. Our biggest thing is Gray Market Magazine. We're the top 100 watch publications in the world, and we've only been open 2 years. We decided to go back old school ways to write articles. That's one of the most effective ways that we do this. But the most effective is me having something on my wrist, or any one of my sales guys talking about it. Yeah. Recently I started doing these watch talks on Instagram, these 1.5 minute videos, just to give people enough information to get them interested and wanting to research more. That, I think, is more effective than putting any watch into any major store in the world.
And also what the community wanted to know is, what were the biggest loss you had on a watch?
Ooh, the biggest loss I had on a watch? Well, are we talking about losing a watch, or we're talking about getting frauded?
You bought it and you...
Oh, I had to sell it, had a loss.
Yeah.
So, you know, we recently had a dip 2 years ago after post the COVID craze. Lucky for me, I have somebody like Adrian on my team who came in 3 months before the dip happened and said, Roman, we're here. It's time to take all the hot popular stuff, because what was it? It was Rolex, Nautiluses, Aquanauts, Rolexes, RM. Certain RMs didn't really take that big of a dip, but he said anything that's hot is we're selling, profit, no profit, we're getting rid of it, because I think the market is done. The way we figured it out is very simple. When you see a watch trade hands 5 times among dealers and doesn't end up on a client's wrist, it's we're approaching that bubble. In fact, we stayed away 3-4 months prior to the I don't want to call it a bubble, an adjustment. We shied away from selling hot stuff to clients. My clients would come and say, I want a platinum Daytona, and I said, I don't think you should buy it for $200,000. So we would wholesale some of that stuff. And then when all that happened, of course, we had some leftovers, right? So I sold one skeleton perpetual calendar after post dip. I lost $165,000. I sold another perpetual calendar, I lost $100,000. But all in all,
but does this make something with you in terms of, let's say you lose? Is it something?
It's cost of doing business. During COVID, we were making money overnight. Watches used to go up in price overnight. So what you do, you just give some back. It's cost of doing business. You win some, you lose some. As long as your wins are bigger than your losses, you're fine.
Okay.
Right. But there's been losses where we got frauded for over $250,000 and things of that nature.
No.
Again, cost of doing business.
You got frauded?
Oh yeah. Listen, you work with a guy for 5, 7, 8 years. It's all handshake. Tomorrow you're going to call me and say, Roman, send me the $1 million watch. I want to show it to a client. Are you going to sign a piece of paper? No, I'm going to put it in the mail. I'm going to send it to you. That's our business.
And then he went away with it.
Yeah. Well, he went under. He got beyond his means and went under. I'm not going to mention any names, but the person whose watch we're about to look at, before he went to jail, he owes me $75,000 but I did millions in business with him. So again, I look at it as cost of doing business. If you're not going to do business based on trust and reputation in our industry, I believe you're going to be dead. You can't be a stickler on everything. Now, yeah, listen, I do everything properly. I'll get an invoice. I'll get this. I make sure I get paid. But we do extend credit in our industry, unfortunately. And listen, I had a guy died in a plane crash with $800,000 worth of my stuff. It's a true story. So,
he had a plane crash?
Yeah. There's a video I put on my Instagram where I told the story. The guy left the trade show, been buying from me for years. Every trade show, he'd come in, buy a ton of stuff, paid me 30, 60, 90. That was his credit terms, and he died in a plane crash. So what are you going to do? People say, well, you can go to his family. Like, yeah, I'm going to call his wife and said,
Hello.
Yeah, you know what I mean? The guy did millions of business with me. So, again, cost of doing business.
Wow. I mean, for everyone who now is, let's say, because when we go live on Twitch, some people always say, okay, I want to start in perfume business because in Europe this is a big thing. I want to start perfume business.
Everybody likes perfume.
Yeah, but not like in Europe, believe me, it's crazy. Or I want to start in watch business. I mean, would you recommend anyone starting right now watches?
I would recommend for anybody to start any business at any given time, so long as you have the passion and the drive for it. And here's the thing, is that if you're a good enough businessman, if you're a smart enough businessman, you will know how to do business and be successful in any market, right? In fact, when the worst time in a business is, I believe, where we are now, when the market plateaued. It's not going up, it's not going down, it stays stable. This is when you usually make the least amount of margin, and this is also where it's the hardest, right? When the market is on the way up, you're actually making less money. You make more money when the market is on its way down. So post the dip is where we're making more money, because what you're doing as a buyer, you're anticipating some product to dip further, so you're paying a lot less, but yet you're still able to make margin. Abnormal profit, as they call it in economics 101, right? So when the market is on its way up, it's very hard to keep up because the inventory is moving. Now you're paying more for the same thing that you sold a week ago, so you're making less margin, bigger volume. It's just a question of how well you understand business in general. And if you're able, you can walk into any business in any given market. The market can be completely dead, and you can find opportunity. You just have to have the knowledge and the drive.
And do you also had someone stole from you, from the stuff?
From the staff, no.
Never?
Never happened, not once. One time, in my very, very first office, this is many years ago, we lost a watch. I remember till this day, it was a gold Piaget Polo. At the time, it cost, whatever the gold cost, it was like $6,000, $7,000. And mind you, at the time, I didn't have a bank vault. I had a small safe that was standing up, and I'm like, how can it get lost? This is not possible. And nobody in the office I knew would steal it. And I'm like, well, shit. 2 years later, we upgraded to a bigger office. We were moving. And I had a couch in the middle of this. It's a small office. It was only about, I would say, 120 meters square. And we were moving the couch, we removed the cushions, and the watch was stuck inside the cushions. We found it some 2 years later. we're like, oh, this is a bonus because we already wrote it off. So, but never have I had, stuff does go missing, especially for jewelry, but it's usually post trade shows, and most of the time it goes missing because something was misplaced. And I'll show you how we have everything organized in the vault, but for the most part, nothing really goes missing ever.
What are the most kind of business ethics you look if you hire some new stuff? What is the most important kind of what the people need to have? What is
So it depends on where I hire people, but in general, for any position, whether it's a guy that's packing boxes or whether it's somebody taking pictures or selling watches, I tell them, I expect you to treat the company as if it's yours, and I expect you to treat each other and myself the way I treat you. I treat everybody as if they're a family. Yes, I have process in place. Everything is under what we call SOP, which is standard operating procedure. It's a military term I took from the Army, right? So I expect you to follow the rules that I set forth when you come in here. But I also expect you to tell me that if this rule can be better, you can do it better, or you can think of a better idea. I expect you to come and tell me that, hey, you know what, rule number 5 sucks, we can make it better, more efficient, right? And I expect people to be dedicated. Unfortunately, usually it's not the case a lot of the times, right? Because you have certain employees that think about themselves, number one, and they should. But I expect at least some sort of level of treatment. Like if I treat somebody a certain way, I expect the same treatment back.
What is the biggest obstacle you would say the younger generation has? In my opinion, when we hire people, it is always they want everything up front. You know, with me, I remember when I used to work for a shop. You know, the time I spent there doesn't matter. You just work, and then after a certain time, it will be paying off.
It's a generational thing, right? And especially very clear in America, this feeling of entitlement, the feeling of wanting everything tomorrow, right? Not 2 weeks from now. It's like, listen, buddy, I'm not the guy that's going to tell you, listen, you got to carry heavy boxes for 10 years before you make an extra penny, right? But I'm also being the guy that said, show me. And you don't necessarily show me. You show me things in little tiny ways that, hey, for my videographers, for example, listen, their job is 9 to 6, right? That's when our office is open. We want our lunch. But sometimes the video needs to go out, something went wrong, and you need to work on the weekends. If I don't ask you to work on the weekends and tell you to work on the weekends, and you do it anyway because you knew something needs to get out, that's called being a team player and stepping up when you need to. Because let's face it, nobody in this office sits with their head down for 8 hours a day, right? There's free time, there's this. I'm always very lenient. Oh, you need to go to an appointment, you have to take your kids somewhere, you have something in your church or something, go. But my expectation is that you give that back to me. So when I need you to be here on the weekends, actually when you know you need to be here on the weekend because you're behind without me asking, that's dedication. That's how you get ahead. It's not about the quality of the work that you do. It's about the dedication you put forth. And if I know you're putting it 100%, because my policy or my logic, business sense is very simple. I utilize my resources to the utmost of their capabilities based on what they get compensated within an acceptable margin of error. For example, accounting, the margin of error is very little. Shipping, the margin of error is very little because ship somebody a richer meal instead of an Omega, it's a problem. It happened before. Luckily, it took the clients that sent it back. But, you know, I had a client literally get an RM instead of an Omega. And he's like, Roman, I appreciate the gesture, but I can't really afford this, right? So, listen, labels got mixed up. But you also have to understand your staff's capability. You can't, you know how they say you can't get water out of a rock sometimes? There's people that only are, their capabilities, whether mentally or physically, is only so much. And as long as what they're able to accomplish, whether physically or mentally, based on what they're being compensated, works for you as an owner, then you're doing a good job.
And now you are in this business for, let's say, over 20 years. Yeah. What is your dream? You want to do it still when you are 70 years, 80 years old, or what is your dream?
No, I think I'm already getting into a position where we're working on something that will potentially change the watch industry. And when I say watch industry, I mean mine and yours, secondary industry. And I think once that project comes alive, I will get sort of a feel of accomplishment. And don't get me wrong, you know, having grown up in an apartment smaller than my office, the ultimate goal is obviously to sell the company for a big dollar amount. And oddly enough, it's really not about the money. It's really about that where I started and where I'll end up. But at the same token, I wanted to do it to a point where the company is still around and it's still feeding the many families that are here. So ultimately, the goal is to come up with something that's going to be industry changing, that's going to be remembered, if you will, or become a standard, while at the end of the day, cashing out. I've been working pretty hard for 22 years, so it's not, will I get out of the business? No. Post that, I'm going to still continue doing media because I enjoy it, continue educating people, and continue buying some crazy Roman buys.
Let's see what you selected. What is with your, let's say, your heart? Because you are, since when are you selling watches?
All the time, 24/7.
No. I mean, when you started.
Story. He was a kid that did social media for a local car dealer. He loves cars. So he was working for a local dealer. He was 19 years old, working for a local dealership that sells Lamborghinis and Bentleys. And he always wanted to sell watches. So he got a job here as a social media manager. Well, let me just tell you, he sucked at social media, okay?
Better now.
Better now. But the whole goal was for him to become...
I saw your video got reposted now. The one with Kelly.
Oh yeah, that is
So he didn't give a shit what to do to wash the floors here, pack boxes. He just wanted in, and lo and behold, it didn't take him very long to become $1 million a month salesperson. And honestly, I treat him as like my son. He's also friends with my son.
Yeah.
Like, they become really good friends over the years, and we talked about dedication. We talked about treating it as your own. And what he manages to do is do that, but at the same token, not to allow anything to get him down. I taught him very well from a young. It's very easy to, I guess, I don't want to say train, but to get people better when they come to you when they're very young. It's much easier to mold them, right?
Yeah.
So the whole thing with him is that I taught him early on that your day or your career consists of one day, 24 hours. Once the 24 hours over, you start over every single morning. So if you had a bad day, doesn't matter. You had a great day, also doesn't matter. Every day is new. And with that attitude, that's why he's one of my most successful salespeople.
Thank you, bro. I do appreciate that. To answer your question, my heart is right now with like FP Journe. I like FP Journe. Specifically, that's very nice. Or for me, it's Elegante. It's like the black sheep of FP Journe, sort of. But I really like the sportiness. I just like sporty watches because, as you can see, this is my daily attire at the office.
And that's just his.
And Roman's, but most of the time I'm sitting at my desk, I'm working, glued to my computer, so I don't like having heavy things on my wrist. So sporty. We do have an Elegante, but yeah. So everything I brought up today, though, is a mixture of basically what Luxury Bazaar stands for, which is rare is what we do.
Before we start with the watch, let me just ask you one question.
Of course.
The people out there, they gave you, I think, a very hard time for your car, for the car color, right?
The pink car that I had. I don't have that car anymore, but yes, the people did not like the pink color, but I like...
I also liked it. When we met, I said, nice car color.
Yeah.
This is...
I like colorful things. It brings a little bit of life into something that usually pretty boring, right?
Okay, so Roman, you have something in mind with this Cobra. I mean, what do you want to do with it? Your museum want to open?
So one of the things sometimes I like to do is there's always opportunity to corner markets within our industry, right? I did it very early on without even knowing what I did. Meaning that early on when the AP offshore craze started, the limited editions, I asked myself a question when I bought my first Juan Pablo Montoya titanium for $14,000. I said, wait a minute, this is a limited edition. There's only 1,000. The watch is made extremely well. It is very, very signifies car racing, which sang to me, obviously. I said, this is something special. There's something special here. There's got to be a genre. I cannot corner a market with a brand. Mind you, at the time, I think my entire inventory was $500,000, maybe less, right? But I can certainly create enough of a buzz and explain to people the watch well enough to where it will get them excited in terms of collectability. I never said a watch was an investment, but watches can be collectible, right? So this was a cool genre of collectability in terms of, being a racing watch. Juan Pablo Montoya, although it didn't really amount too much, as far as his racing career is concerned. Obviously, the Schumacher would probably be a better example. But nevertheless, that's when I realized you can corner certain markets. Now, I always told people about what I like to call sleepers, right? These are watches that I believe are of value today, which in the future can become a much greater value. Because if I look at the Beta from Patek Philippe, this is a watch that used to be able to pick up for $15,000 and nobody wanted it. But if you figure out that when they made these Betas, right, that first of all, a lot of them, once they break, you can't fix them. The quartz unit that's inside this watch, this is obviously from the quartz era. The quartz unit that's in here, if it breaks, you're fucked.
And this one is broken?
No, they're not. But the other thing you have to realize is, well, how many of these they made a decent amount of them, but not that many, because this wasn't your average Patek. This wasn't your average Patek for early '80s, right? It's a massive watch. So they made them on straps, they made them on bracelets. There were integrated bracelets, but they also made a very, very few what we call a Swiss cheese bracelet that you can actually remove. So this is going to be the rarest one. The way gold, there's probably only a handful out there. If you learn about that and you know those things, this is what I like calling not cornering the market, but having something that you won't compete against anybody else. And if you're an expert and you're able to set a price on that's within reason in terms of this is where I feel the price is reasonable. People will listen and people will understand that value, and they're going to want to buy it. These Cobras, they made so very little of them. And this is one of the most iconic watches made from Audemars Piguet, right? This is Gerald Genta. Again, a bit of a controversy. Was it the Royal Oak or the Cobra first? I say it was the Cobra first because he designed it first. But when it went into production, it was reference number 5403, where the Royal Oak is 5402. Same movement, right? Same designer. And if you look at the watch, any one of them, you'll notice that this is the best integrated case bracelet combination in the world. There's nothing out there that's better. Obviously, it's called a Cobra for a reason. And what a lot of people don't realize, most collectors, the true collectors, know that one of the most difficult parts of creating a watch is actually making a bracelet. And when you have an integrated bracelet that integrates with the case flawlessly, the bracelet is literally the case, this is something special. And when you know that the production numbers were this big, mind you, this is quartz crisis just started. This is 1972. This is people, the Swiss industry is dying. To have the balls to make something like this was absolutely amazing, including the Royal Oak. But how many are you going to make? Because demand wasn't there. Everybody wanted a quartz. It's like when the iPhones came out, nobody wanted a flip phone.
But it's also very difficult for me as a dealer's perspective. For example, a client comes and says, okay, I want to sell this global faucet. This price is...
This one is, this is the white gold, retails like $585.
Okay, you need to price that. You know what? How do you price it? There's no Uno on this one.
So there is that, and this is why I like having stuff like this, because there is no competition out there. I'm the one that dictates the price, and my price is not based on me looking at the seat and saying, oh, I think that's $80,000. It's based on what I purchased, based on what I bought them for. Because you remember, you buy the first one for $1, you buy the last one for 10, right? Because the price goes up, and then you price average the stuff because the minute you start wanting to buy up these things, you drive your own prices up, right? But with something like a Group of Fours, that you do have auction results. I do know what their production numbers are. Again, I talked to you earlier about brands coming out of the gate with such a high price tag. Well, they have no choice but to do so, because that, to me, is the best made watch in the world. There's nothing better in terms of watchmaking, finishing, quality, innovation.
I also sold you one, right?
Huh?
I also sold you one.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
The best made watches out there. But again, they come out of the gate so expensive because they don't have a choice. Because it takes them so long to make one watch. They make so very few. They're going to show, I saw at the Geneva Watch Days, their new invention piece, this innovation piece. This is when they put forth an innovation that doesn't exist in horology. It took them 7 years of research and development to create that watch. So how can they price it at $100,000? They now have to price it $500,000-$600,000. Some of their innovation pieces are $800,000-$900,000. But the innovation is there, and it's really for those that know. The bigger issue with companies like this, they don't have the runway behind them to protect their own brand. And this is what companies are just now starting to wake up and realize. That's why they want to work with guys like me and you, because they're realizing that we know how to handle the secondary. Before, nobody cared about the secondary. Now they're starting to realize it's the secondary market that's going to break a brand. This is what it is.
Talking about this, I think we should also cover Ulysse Nardin, because we both met a gentleman who is in charge of the brand.
I think that, listen, we all know the history, and this has happened to numerous brands over and over, and that is what happens when somebody takes over. When Rolf Schneider died, Rolf Schneider revived the brand to its old glory by bringing over Louis Archleg to create the Freak, for example, by creating the Royal Blue Tourbillons, and with bringing in Christophe Claret, bringing in talented watchmakers to create something out of this world. Ulysse Nardin has always been known for one thing and one thing only since 1846. They were the leader in making something best. It was this that put them on a map, right? It wasn't really their watches. It was their chronometers that put them on a map, right? Because they were the best made chronometers in the world at the time. So believe it or not, dating back to late 1800s, early 1900s, when they were making these for the military, the English fleet, because whatever they were making in England wasn't good enough, the deviation of this was only -2. Which is unbelievable for a chronometer, right? So this is what put them on the map to being the foremost quality watchmaker, and that continued on with innovation. Things like Circus Minute Repeater, right?
Yeah, beautiful watch. Beautiful.
The latest and greatest Freak, and this is number 20 Freak in the lineup, right? I have the original Freak somewhere too. But I guess you didn't bring it up, right? Oh, there it is. So it went from this 21 years ago to this, right? But the innovation that they have, silicium technology, nobody has it now. Half the industry is using it, right? Some of the stuff they did with the constant escapements to make it more accurate is absolutely amazing. The fact that this is a watch that has no hands, this is a watch that has no face, right? This is so, for the time, this was so avant-garde. That's why they called it the Freak. It was my #1 seller.
What I don't understand, maybe you can answer. Let's say if we talk about the most basic freak model, okay? This one is now located, let's say 17,000.
Freak X.
Freak X. Because we had it, if a client, let's say he buys a Pepsi, okay? It's the same price, more or less.
Yeah.
And if you sell a freak back to me, it will be the same like you buy a Pepsi and sell it back to me. There is no difference. Why are the people always choosing the model which everyone has?
Because in the last 3 to 4 years, 5 years, it has been embedded into their head that watches are an investment, something that I've been anti my entire career. Watches are not an investment, they're a horological marvel and an expensive toy. You need to treat it as such. But the problem is when you have Bloomberg's and Wall Street Journals and Rob reports creating watch indexes and showing how Rolex index had outperformed the S&P 500, this is the most ridiculous thing in the world. It created a hype and people were buying watches for their dollar amount. They see dollar signs first, they don't see innovation. We're getting away from that. And that dip, that cooled everybody off, and I always made fun of the guy that writes for Rob Report. He actually messaged me. He's like, "Why do you always make fun of my articles?" And I'm like, "Well, because you're not on the ground. I'm not calling you stupid. I'm not calling you that you're not a smart guy. I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't necessarily wrong." I said, "But to put forth the type of opinion you're putting forth and influencing the masses, you need to be down on the ground. You need to sit with me for a week and see what's actually going on."
Yeah.
But I want to go back to these guys, and let's look at, and they're not the only company that suffered that fate. So when, unfortunately, Rolf Schneider died of cancer at a very young age, and what happened, the family sold the company to the Kering Group, which is a fashion house. So what did they do? They overproduced. They came up with a distribution model where they're selling the stuff cents on a dollar and actually producing for the purpose of selling closeouts, as we like to call them. And I know who the person was in the Middle East that actually bought the big deal and kept buying them. And that's why all of a sudden the freak became less special, because they were producing 35,000 pieces a year. Now fast forward to 2 years ago when the company, both Girard-Perregaux and it's one group, they got bought back over. They're now under a private ownership, and now we have somebody at the helm that understands what needs to be done. And that is you reduce production drastically. Now you're down to 5,000 pieces, and you stick with your DNA. You create some of the most creative stuff out there. This freak Nomad S, it literally combines. So it took last year's GPHD winner, right, and it took it back in time with the dial and the design. They combined the old and the new, and I think they did a tremendous job. I've sold one so far. I managed to get my hands on 2. I sold one so far, pretty much close to its MSRP, and that's what I'm selling this one for, because they're not available. The problem is people will still go on Chrono 24 and see the remnants of the goods that were produced over the last, I don't know how long the Kering Group had, 7 years?
Yeah.
There's a lot of backstock. Eventually that backstock will go away. Eventually the prices will go up because people are going to start seeing value in that. Because just because they produced a lot doesn't mean that the Royal Blue Tourbillons that are out there seemingly at 35 cents on a dollar, that it's still not the same Christophe Claret movement, amazing tourbillon, right?
I mean, if we go to this side, the one watch which I really want to see is this one here. This is a massive watch.
So we all know this watch has provenance, as we like to call it. We're not going to mention any name. But again, it goes back to the same group, Ulysse Nardin, Girard-Perregaux.
I'm sure when you bought it, you were really happy to get it, right?
I'm still happy that I have it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still happy that I have it because look, for this I saw value. It's no secret. You see again, Girard-Perregaux suffered the same fate as that Ulysse Nardin. It's the same group. Their triple bridge tourbillon is one of the most iconic things.
Beautiful.
I do like shiny things. I do like shiny watches. I think the watch is absolutely gorgeous. And when you're looking at a watch that retails for $1.6 million and change, that you're now able to sell to a client at a third of the price, even less, somebody somewhere will find value in it.
Yeah.
And if they don't, I can still wear it once in a while, especially when I'm in Vegas. But we're talking about Christophe Claret. This encompasses a lot of things that a certain individual that I'm a big fan of did for the industry, and that's Max Buser, right?
Yeah.
So this is the Opus 4. So when Max left Jaeger and he came to Harry Winston to be in charge of the complicated line, or whatever, I forget what they call it. He started bringing in all these watchmakers, right? Starting with F. Bijorn. I actually have the Opus 1 F. Bijorn. Where the hell did he bring it? Let me ask him while we talk. It looks like a F. Bijorn Resonance, right? But it's not, it's the Opus 1. So this is the Opus 1. The first person that Max Buser brought to Harry Winston was F. Bijorn, who at the time was a nobody, right? In fact, he got his start actually. He made, get how many Sonnery movements for Piaget. I used to have one of those too. Actually, I have it, it's in repair. But this is the watchmaker he chose to bring forth, and it started the idea of we don't often hear that Daniel Roth was making watches for Breguet in the 80s, right? We don't often hear who the watchmaker was. David Candot, do you know who he is? There's a reason why you don't know who he is. David Candot worked for many years for J.J. Lecoq, right? He's the guy responsible for the Master Antoine minute repeater. He's also the guy responsible for creating the triptyque. He's got 35 patents under his belt, but nobody knows about him. He's also the guy that made the, did he bring it? David Kandel was also the one responsible for the HM6 that Max Busser did with him, the one that looks like a spaceship with the
Yeah.
4 windows, right? So you don't hear about that, and Max made that such a known thing, which is why when you're looking at the MB&F watches, the watchmaker's name is right on the watch. It tells you who's responsible for that. It wasn't Max. Yeah, Max may have designed it, but he gives credit to where credit is due, and that's the watchmakers. And we're now slowly but surely starting to bring that to light, where you look at a Harry Winston, which is, and this is the Opus 4, it's actually, I call it a 2-for-1 because it's a reversible watch. Right? You can actually wear it this way, or you can wear it this way. Now, you're talking about an annual calendar minute repeater tourbillon chronograph. This is a very complicated timepiece, right? And it's made by Christophe Claret. Christophe Claret he's a master in minute repeaters, right? He's also responsible for this tourbillon, right? The Coram Billionaire. That's very much his. You can tell. Oh, it's a Harry Winston. Oh, Christophe Claret. But then when they realize how many things Christophe Claret was responsible for, mind you, he didn't have a lot of success with his own company. It's usually the case. Just genius watchmakers are not businessmen. So he made a blackjack watch. He made a poker watch. He made the watch that uses magnets to show time and decided the Extreme One
with the balls.
Right? Just because he didn't have success in his own right. But I'm now starting to see he's also responsible for this minute repeater. He's also responsible for the Genghis Khan. So that's Christophe Claret, right? So people are now starting to go backwards and finding value. This watch originally retailed, I don't know. Well, back then it was not that much. It was probably around $300,000. But today you're buying this watch at a third of the price. But what you're getting is, once people look past the fact that they're getting a Harry Winston, you're also getting Max Busser, you're also getting Christophe Claret, you're also getting an amazing minute repeater, tourbillon, and so on and so forth.
What about Lange & Söhne?
So Lange & Söhne is
Solid in price, very solid in price.
It's been steady. The dip didn't affect it whatsoever. Over the last 5-6 years, I saw it steadily do this.
Yeah.
But again, the company woke up because the Richemont Group said, well, wait a minute. Why don't we have this one winner brand like all the other groups do, companies do, Audemars Piguet is doing all these wonderful things. They're doing nothing more than following the footsteps of Francois, who did what? He basically went into the market, bought up all the stuff, took it all back, cut down production, cut out a lot of the middlemen, opened up boutiques, and next thing you know, the stuff is selling on retail because it's not available. And some genius marketing techniques.
Yeah.
Actually wasn't his idea. It was Mr. Malin's idea, the CEO before him, who's the father of the Malin brothers that now own Moser.
Okay.
And Hollands. But
Yeah.
long story short, he executed it well. So for Langes, anytime I find a Lange on a bracelet, to me, this is about as rare as it gets because Lange had to go out elsewhere to have other companies make bracelets for him, and it's very extremely difficult to execute them. So very little numbers of these were made. But outside of these two Langes, I have a lineup of pretty much every Lange you can think of because I sell people quality watchmaking at a value when it comes to Lange. And if you look at their history, look what they've done. They flipped the watch world upside down when they came out with the Datograph. Because at the time the Datograph came out, what did they do? They made an in-house movement that was better than any other chronograph out in the market, and that still is. So Patek, at the time, 5070 was the comparable watch. It was a Lemania movement. No offense to Lemania. Wonderful machine. Great machine.
Yeah.
In fact, when they made their first in-house chronograph, I still felt that Lemania was better. But they made guys like Patek Philippe all of a sudden say, well, wait a minute. We need to start. Before it was normal. I make my movement here, I put it in the case, I slap my name on it, voila.
Yeah.
Now, in-house craze. Everybody and their mother is doing in-house. They're responsible for that. I actually, it's a shame. I have the very first Lange.
With the closed case back?
The 001. I sent it to Mike Naveau. You can see it. You can see it on his TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one is actually the 002. So they came out with the first Lange one with 001 and 02. It's at the same time. Difference is gold hands and blue hands. They all came out at the same time. I wanted one for myself, but I want the one. I want it to be 001. So that one we're gonna sell.
From all the watches we have here, which is your favorite? This is the question.
It's a very difficult.
You need to select one.
I need to select one.
You need to select one. From all the watches here, what should we point out?
Okay, I mean I have 150 more watches downstairs.
We need to select one now here.
So to be fair, my taste changes all the time, right? So I have new favorites almost every week because new stuff comes out, right? If I had to pick one, it would be. How about give me one old, one new?
Okay.
Fair?
Okay.
All right. So from new, I'm gonna go with the Freak Nomad S.
Yeah.
Because this combines 20 plus years of innovation from Louis Nardin and packs it into one watch, right? If I'm going old, I'm going for rarity. Well, first of all, iconic 3700 Nautilus, right? Ooh. But this is not any Nautilus, this is a Conjar. So there's only 6 of these in the world known. This is the second one that I'm getting in my hands. Auction results recent where You had one that was basically beat the crap, with vintage it's all about condition, that fetched just under 900,000. The one prior to that was in better condition, fetched $1,250,000 in Sotheby's, and we're asking a little over $1 million for ours. But for me, it's not about the price tag, it's about the fact that if I put this on my wrist, for those that know, and A is Joe Genta, my favorite watch designer of all time, and 3700 Patek Nautilus, it's iconic, and it's uber rare. So yeah, that for old, that for new. Something in between is gonna be tough.
No, this was the challenge. He passed the challenge.
So it's listen, with him, Alice brought up some watches just to show, quote unquote, the Roman buys and something a little bit different. I can show you 100 Rolexes, that's not gonna impress anybody, right? The same goes for APs, or certain APs, I should say. But to sum it all up, the modern day Gerald Genta, Max Buser, a company with heritage that I'm loving the fact that I see that they're on the way back up where they deserve to be. When I started in the industry, this was my top 3 selling brands, and I want it to be that way again. I did bring an Urwerk up because I have much respect for people, Baumgartner.
You wear this a lot at the brand.
Yeah, I do like Urwerk a lot. In fact, it's always a toss-up for me between MB&F and Urwerk as a favorite independent, and Grubel Forzi. But with Urwerk, Felix Baumgartner also, they kind of got their fame through Max, Opus 5, right? And again, it's a watch that you don't see implemented in any other watches. Right, and of course I go back to the times of Michael Parmigiani when he, this is a Parmigiani. This is not like some of the stuff they started doing later in order to make more money. But this is an original Torre Turbia, right? This is when Parmigiani was Parmigiani, as they say. It's still a great brand, don't get me wrong. It's just business directions change.
All a big waste of time. Don't do it. What you want to do is you want to move on, you want to secure your shit, and you want to make sure your money's coming in proper. It's the only way to live.
Thank you very much.
And especially for the guys out there that only wear silver.
Yeah.
It's a cool piece to just stash. So, I mean, if you take like 5 of them,